So let's just get started. So it's my great honor
Yeah.
to have this honor to meet Elena Yangdale, and she is our pharmacy technician at Walgreens at this moment, but she has a very enriched life in United States. I would like her to talk about herself. And Elena, people know you as a dance artist at Twin City Dancing School, but you're actually is also advance yourself into a research, and now you're your pharmacy technician. So if you would like to talk a little bit about yourself and identity, how do you make that connection with the community, with the family members? That would be great. Now, Elena.
Yeah. So, well, I was born in Jinhua in Zhejiang, China. I was adopted when I was about a year old, and that's when I was brought over. And I've been living in Minneapolis / St. Paul ever since. I've got two siblings, an older and a younger, so I am smack dab in the middle. And besides that, I majored in physics and Chinese when I was in college. I graduated back in 2020. And since then, I've been working in a pharmacy, but uh, otherwise, I've been doing dance for pretty much all of my life. And through dance, I've been sharing kind of the Chinese culture and uh, yeah, just in arts. It's been a great time performing and going out to different locations to perform for people, talk a little bit about the Chinese culture. Yeah.
It's just awesome to see your beautiful dance there, and you jump so high. And also it's always nice every time I meet with you, you have that big smile on your face, your gratitude to everything happened to you. That's just outstanding. And you adopted like when you were 1 year old, but it seems like that never bothers you. And how did you make, sometimes for teenagers, people struggle about who am I and how do I relate to this whole wide world. Have you ever struggled in that?
Sorry, my internet cut out a little bit. Can you say that one more time?
So sometimes people struggle about the identity crisis is very common, um, things that teenagers or people moving towards to their 20s struggle about. Have you ever have to deal with this, and what bothers you the most, and how did you overcome the problems?
Yeah, so in kind of my teenage years, it was a little bit, well, it was a struggle with my Asian American identity. There was a little bit of I guess, uh, it was just kind of a hard time with being adopted. Sometimes I would help out my mom with her physical education classes. She's a teacher for elementary students. And when I would help her out, the students would sometimes look at the two of us and really question whether or not we were mother and daughter. So that got to me sometimes, but I learned to just kind of accept the way it was. And I mean, I think the adoption part of it's something that I'll always, you know, have in my mind. I guess it's just part of my identity. And one part of like being adopted, it's more when I was studying abroad in China, when I really kind of thought about it, how strange it felt to be in a Chinese community where people would just assume that I was, a Chinese person. And then in the American community, where I would also sometimes have that same connotation of like, oh, you're a Chinese person, therefore you have these experiences. But I am adopted and have had a little bit of both cultures, and I've grown up in America at the same time I've been doing Chinese dance. So it's, I guess, just a feeling when not everyone knows your situation. And uh, I think some of that has gotten to me, especially when I was studying abroad. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it seems like you belongs nowhere, and you kind of turn that into you. You kind of make that harmony and accept it, so that you make yourself, be belongs to everywhere. Then what did you do to make that happen? What kind of, is there anyone inspire you or anything inspire you for to make that happen?
Um, let's see. Well, it was helpful to be a part of Chinese dance. I think it definitely made me feel a little bit more Chinese being surrounded by, my teachers and sometimes fellow students who are a little bit older than me at times. I would sometimes join some of the adult classes since my mom was also in that class. Uh, so it was kind of like having 中国阿姨. And yeah, it helped me like envision the or like see the Chinese in myself and like feel a little bit more, I guess, Chinese, but just being in the culture a little bit, that was something that was really important to me and I've cherished it.
Does faith to plays a role in your life ever?
Did what take place?
The faith or religious religions
Oh,
ever?
religion. Yeah. So that was a brief period. Well, I guess not quite. So there was a brief period in middle school where I was actually part of a Chinese church. It was I don't honestly remember the location because my parents would always drive me. But one of my friends was Christian and was also adopted from China, and she would well, somehow she found out about this church and ended up going there and didn't want to go alone, so she brought me with her. At that point, I had like a little bit of Christian influences from my mother's mom. She was a Catholic raised and kind of raised my mom Catholic as well, but my mom isn't actually practicing Catholic. So sometimes when I was really small, I would say grace at the table, but otherwise, I we weren't really thinking of ourselves as Catholic in any way. But I went to church for a little while with one of my friends, and it was a Chinese church where they would have a adult group, which was all a Chinese sermon, and then a smaller teenage group where we would speak in both English and sometimes Chinese, but pretty much everyone in that group spoke English primarily. Uh, so there was that a little bit in my life that was pretty much only in middle school, but my dad was a little bit more on the Buddhist end, and he would meditate and uh, like, he would go to I think meditation groups. He had a meditation center that he would go to, and I kind of felt a little bit more of a pull towards that as I started growing up a little bit more. But I guess I haven't ever really claimed the faith too strongly.
I see.
There's, definitely parts from both of the religions that I, agree with, and then also some things that it's just not fully my cup of tea.
Sure. And you were emphasize quite a bit about that gratitude you have to your family, to your current family, and the environment you have, especially after you spend your time in Hangzhou. Is that correct? Could you elaborate that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess I mean, it wasn't even completely after Hangzhou. I don't know exactly when it started really, but it was, just gradually as I grew up, I became more thankful for what I had. And I think some of that is growing up, but I think some of that is I ponder possibly a little bit too much about the what ifs and thinking about the what ifs of if I hadn't been adopted or if I hadn't been specifically adopted into the family that I have now. I I mean, I don't know what could have happened. I could have I definitely would have been fluent in Chinese if I had stayed in China. Good at English and I wouldn't have made any of the important connections that I've made currently.
That's okay.